Hi, hey everyone. So this is our good friends, Colin and Taylor. They are both active duty officers.
So Taylor, what was the process that you went through to become an officer? And what did you do as an enlisted member beforehand?
So I enlisted in 2009. I was in the Washington Air National Guard. I was an intel targeteer, so I was also in intel for about 5 years while I was enlisted. My amazing supervisor suggested that I get my degree and become an officer. So I started exploring those options, and I found something that was called a conditional release given by the Air Force that's signed by your commander that says you can be released from your current contract in order to become an officer in the active duty Air Force, so that I could actually go to college. I did 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks out of the year, and I was actually able to go to university in Washington.
You were enlisted, and then you became an officer, and then from there, how did you select your AFSC?
I had originally dropped manned pilot. They disqualified me from manned flying for scoliosis. I guess in the event of like G forces, like break your back essentially, I chose RPA pilot. I went to DOS and did 40 hours in the Diamond.
Was that IFS or IFT when you went? Do you remember?
That was IFT. I was the very first class to do IFT. Initial flight training, and they changed it from IFS, which was initial flight screening, because there was a pilot shortage. Wanted to see how then they would do in the T6.
Yes, I'm very happy that they changed it.
No.
Okay, so then after you finished school at San Antonio, then there's a selection process. How does that drop? What are the different type of airframes that can come out of that?
We actually do the T6 training. A lot of it in a simulator. There's just a few flight hours in an actual T6. From beginning to end, that's like 6 to 9 months of training before we even get to the MQ9. How well you do in the T6 determines which base you get. There are a lot of people that aren't comfortable with dropping weapons, and so they opt to go to the RQ4.
So what is that mission? What is that airframe, and what is it called?
The RQ4 Global Hawk. Colin used to do this mission. He would know a lot more about it than I do.
If you're familiar with the U-2 spy plane, right, flies really high. It's got cameras and sensors on it. It's one of those ISR platforms, the surveillance things. So they fly around and they collect information basically. And so the RQ4, the Global Hawk, is just the RPA or the drone version. It's the exact same job. It just does it a little bit differently.
So then in your community and just being a woman, you felt any sort of gender discrimination?
Swinging for the fences.
Really good question, and I appreciate you asking that. That's also a difficult question to answer. This community in particular, thankfully for the most part, I have been treated equal. When I first got to my last squadron, I was given a call sign that was very sexually charged. It was extremely hurtful, and it was entirely because I was a woman in a group of over 100 men. So while we are different, there aren't a lot of women in aviation, but it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't be a factor.
Yeah, and I think the pilot community is very different. I never had a call sign or anything, and so the gender discrimination was not something that I experienced on your level.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Colin, you're an intel officer. Can you give a little insight on what that means and what you do?
Yeah, for sure. Yes, two kind of different fields. You can get placed in a job where you're supporting flying units, so any type of aircraft is going to have intel people supporting it. The other side that works with what's called ISR, or intel surveillance and reconnaissance. Those are the people that process all the information that comes off of like airplanes that take pictures or do any other sort of like surveillance type stuff. I am supporting like a flying unit right now.
Do you give a brief every day?
It depends. Things that are happening like few times a week. So they'll get a bunch of people together, they'll go plan a mission, and my job is to be in there supporting that and kind of informing the process and the plan that they end up coming up with.
So then you're a weapons officer as well. So explain what that means and what is weapons school?
Yeah, so after the Korean War, we had a bunch of combat experience with pilots that the Air Force didn't want to lose once those people retired, so they started the weapons school. The whole idea behind it was basically that you compile all your tactical expertise in whatever airplanes or whatever platforms you have, and then that becomes the school where everybody goes and learns at the highest level possible. So that evolved over the years. It's not just pilots nowadays. There's every platform in the Air Force has a weapons school for the most part, or most of them do at least. And that's just where you go to learn at the highest level. I was lucky enough to get selected to go to to the Intel weapons school. It's just a really, really difficult school for 6 months straight, and then afterwards you come out and then you go do a weapons officer gig wherever you wind up going.
Sounds like the Top Gun of the Air Force, right?
Both of those schools exist for the exact same reason. The Navy did the exact same thing, and that's what the Top Gun school is in the Navy.
Okay, so I kind of want to dispel some of the myth and then also prove some of the truth. When I'm thinking intel officer, I'm thinking Ethan Hunt going in, ground and pound CIA, cloak and dagger. What is the reality of that, and then what differentiates the different type of intel officers? And then the last part of this really long question, how do you choose which one you go into? How does that process happen?
Yeah, I'm about as far away from secret agent, super spy guy as you can possibly be. I wear like computer gamer glasses, and I'm at a computer most of the time. You'll wind up finding out what your job's going to be somewhere along your training pipeline. If you're going to be doing that sort of thing, like what you'd see in the movies, a lot of times those are the most specialized jobs that you can possibly get into. It requires you to like seek out those types of jobs.
So you're saying they do exist?
Okay. Well, we love you guys.
I love
Thank
you guys.
so much.
Thank you so much for doing this.